everybody? It's your boy Joseph Rothschild, aka... And we are back with another Twitter thread. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. We're recording this on Valentine's Day, and you're all here, huh? Anyway, today we are talking about Noob Traps. These are cards that, to a new Yu-Gi-Oh player, look absolutely busted, and to a seasoned Yu-Gi-Oh veteran, look like absolute ass. Obviously, the prototypical example of this type of card is Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon. I'm saying payoff, he's not playing it. This card's not good, but it can't be targeted, it can't be destroyed, and it inflicts double piercing. If you attack a zero defense monster, that's the whole game over. Unfortunately, a significant amount of removal spells don't target, don't remove, and a lot of things can just walk over this monster as well. You would have to be an absolute idiot to lose to this card. So let's see what you all came up with. But first, this video is sponsored by HelloFresh. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit. It takes the worst parts out of cooking and makes it simple and easy. If you're looking to stay healthy this year, HelloFresh has more options to support your wellness journey than ever before. Dig into their biggest menu yet, with over 45 dinner options and even more market items that suit any lifestyle. If you're like me and have a schedule too busy to spend time cooking, try HelloFresh's lineup of quick and easy meals, including 15-minute recipes designed to minimize stress and maximize time spent savoring your supper. Not a morning person? Do you struggle to get yourself going? Do you keep missing the Tuesday streams? Well, HelloFresh is also here to kickstart a new year of nutritious and delicious recipes to beat the morning blues with free breakfast. You heard that right. When you join HelloFresh, you will get free breakfast for life. That's really what they're offering? We're talking about one completely free breakfast item packed into your HelloFresh box as long as your subscription is active. I cook pretty frequently with my wife, and HelloFresh takes all the worry about what's in the fridge away, leaving us with the fun of cooking delicious meals together. Their pre-portioned ingredients in the box and simple recipes make cooking an enjoyable activity for anyone. Click the link in the description or scan my QR code and use the code MBTFREE to get free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box as long as your subscription is active. This is a pretty good answer. Oh my God. Scarlon said, I had a random one copy of this card from a pack when I first got into the game. Scarlon, this card came out in 2020. Anyway, this card is like an updated version of Drop Off. You remember that card that caused all those ruling problems? Well, guess what? We made another one. When your opponent draws a card by their own card effect, look at those cards, and if any of your monsters inflict damage to your opponent equal to their combined attack, and if you do that, banish all cards you looked at. It's like a really strong Mind Crush style effect. Absolutely unplayable because it doesn't get cards that are added. So close, and yet this card has tops. No, it's gotta be good. It has tops. If your opponent negates the normal or special summon of a monster or the activation of a card or effect, destroy all cards your opponent controls and in their hand. When this was released, this is all anyone was doing, was negating the activation of a card or effect. And it still sucked balls. The huge problem with this card is that, of course, if your opponent has one negation, probably have a second. Oh man, you're telling me every time I perform combat, I'm gonna get to draw a card? What deck could ever stand up to that raw amount of card advantage? This poster is absolutely correct. This card featured in pretty much every player's first deck, but it also exposed a significant amount of the Yu-Gi-Oh community as noobs because when it was released, like 40% of the player base tried it. Less of a noob trap and more of a noob strat, I feel like every aspiring deck builder has a phase where they think to themselves, you know what, with all the insane equalizers and going second tools, what if I just play a pure go second OTK deck only to be met with a cycle of failure? Listen, everyone picks up Gren Maju. The mark of a good duelist is putting it down. Dude, it's basically a free negate. What are they going to do with one extra card? The Dark Bribe is really a bell curve. Noobs on one hand are like, just negate their most important thing. What are they going to do with one extra card? The people in the middle are like, Yu-Gi-Oh is a card game full of one-card combos. Drawing them into a card probably assures that they'll be able to follow up with exactly the same thing you just tried to stop. And then at the other end of the bell curve, it's, dude, just negate their most powerful effect. They're not going to draw it off one card. Nah, man, it doesn't matter if I can't summon for the rest of the turn. How are they going to out it? Obviously, it doesn't see a lot of play now, and it's remembered mostly for its interaction with Verte and Akanda, but it still shocks me how perfectly Red Eye's Dark Dragoon is designed. It is, without question, the ultimate in Dark Magician player mindset. It is surprising that they were able to distill all of that noobery into one beautiful package. A card that no player who thinks that DM is playable would ever be able to determine is secretly quite bad. Strider is 100% correct. Obviously, we all know individuals who are under the impression that Scrap Iron Scarecrow is the best card in the history of time, but Defense Draw is just one of those cards that you see constantly. It just comes from individuals who like can evaluate cards, understand card advantage, but don't get that negate an attack or prevent battle damage is an effect you do not give a shit about. I really didn't grasp the concept of most games lasting exactly 3 turns when I was teching this in Marincess. This one caught people again recently with VS. The pinpoint landing resurgence was really funny to me because it was a weird, cool glimpse into the fact that many Master Duel players started playing when Master Duel came out. Card evaluation is a skill that you develop over a course of years, but it was so funny seeing like newer VS players being like, no man, I figured out a sick tech, and then post a card like this, and everyone who was playing when Supply Squad was legal went, yeah, I don't think it's gonna work out. One of the biggest from the past year is Time Tearing Morganite. The card reads crazy. Yeah, all you have to do is not activate monster effects in the hand. You can still activate them on the field. You draw twice. You get to normal summon twice. I saw many players gravitate towards it as a non-engine piece. I even fell into testing it in Flu, but it was never impactful enough. There have been some scenarios in which I think Time Tearing Morganite is playable. I think maybe coping Flu builds and that like awful Runic Stun build. It's wild seeing newer players evaluate this card and potentially slot it into a position in the deck that should be occupied by like a triple tactics talent. They're like, well, that draws you 2 cards once. This draws you 2 cards every turn. I can swing for how much? Equimax, unfortunately, is definitely a noob trap, but it's also such a fun deck for noobs to play. It's like they really streamlined the experience of hit hard and then play a bunch of removal spells. Kind of a newer one, but absolutely correct. Yeah. New players see it as the most unbelievable card ever, jam it into everything, then consolidate so many resources they die to 1 imperm instead of understanding a lot of the time she isn't worth it. That's correct. A significant amount of individuals will produce a board that is sticky, hard to break, and then they'll be like, or I could link it all away for exactly Apollosa, and they'll get 1 negate off, and then it'll get walked over by whatever your normal summon is, at which point you can continue to play the game. There are, of course, scenarios in which this card is unbeatably strong, but a significant amount of the time, and you're going to see this a lot in Snake Eyes, people just see the word negate, and they go, oh, it's gotta be this, right? Yu-Gi-Oh! Players are so negate-pilled. Ugh. Thank God it's not like this anymore, but trying to explain a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck to someone in 2019 was disastrous. You would be like, oh yeah, so this is like the resource loop, and they'd be like, how many negates is in your end board? How many negates is your end board? Oh, your end board, how many negates is it? It's like, well, 0. I'm playing Sky Striker. I guess technically Widow Anchor is a negate. They're like, oh, this is not competitive. I can put up 15 negates. And that's why everyone played Pendulum for 4 years and won all those events with it. Now, obviously this is a good card, but when I started playing again in 2019, I legitimately thought this card was the most broken thing ever and thought it deserved a ban list spot. My whole turn over from 1 card, unfair. Then I learned how to play the game. True, but I'm gonna offer a hotter take than this. I think Ash is not nearly as good as we pretend it is. It's a great card, for sure. It's damn good. It's maybe the best hand trap, but I think there are a significant amount of formats, and I'm not just talking about tier format, because I know you all are thinking I'm talking about tier format, where if you have, let's say, 6 slots in your deck for non-engine, you should not be playing this card. I was watching a Goatee Runic profile, and they were talking about what they were playing and why, and it was a lot of really interesting, engaging stuff. And I've always thought this about Runic decks. At the very end, they revealed that they're playing 3 Ash, and they're like, 3 Ash, you gotta, and then they moved on. And I just thought, I was like, why do you gotta? We're in a position where Ash doesn't end the turn. It never does. Now, some boards, some setups, and some decks, the answer to that is yes, that Ash is the difference between playing an unbreakable board and isn't. But I think oftentimes, if the Ash was any other Runic spell, you would end up at the same conclusion, and when deck building, a Runic spell is a lot more flexible than an Ash is. I think a lot of people fall into that trap, into thinking, no, I have to play Ash. And I think there's a lot of players that are just unwilling to even rankle with the fact that this card might be kind of mid. Dyer's right, and there's a huge consequence to using it right now, because your opponent getting to weave Hita into their lines is a fucking disaster. This is, I think, a good teaching opportunity for people who feel like, oh, I'm not a noob, I don't fall into these types of traps. You can, and likely do. I hope this video has been helpful, not only for new players who are now realizing that a bunch of the cards they thought were extremely powerful are actually extremely mid, but also for seasoned players in recognizing that a significant amount of their thought patterns are similar to the people who have been tricked by cards like Blue Eyes Chaos Max. But not me. I'm too smart to fall for that. I'm the only one brave enough to say it says Dire. Keep it up, Dire. We'll get that price down any day now.